All right. So, as for our main topic at hand, I know we seemed like a music podcast for a second there. We were talking about music for like the last 15 minutes, but
oh my goodness, can we become a music podcast?
right? But for our main topic, we're not, really talking about music. We're talking about comparison and how it's the thief of joy. Funny enough, we did a lot of comparing in the last segment, but honestly, comparison is not something that I enjoy, at least not for myself personally.
I was about to say, I don't like being in a comparison, but I love to compare other people. That's fun. Like, what? If I see two people, I want to compare them. Why not?
Sure. But I guess I was speaking
I know what you mean.
Yeah. So yeah, I definitely buy into the idea that comparison is the thief of joy. I heard that quote once and I've never really let it go. I just found out that it could be credited to Teddy Roosevelt. So yeah, very, very poignant statement that I think honestly everybody can take something from.
Yeah,
what do you think?
I definitely agree, right? I think comparison is something that we all do. We compare other people. We compare ourselves to other people. We sometimes we find ourselves in comparisons when we don't want to be, right? We just talked about artists like Brandy, Monica, where they might never have really want to be compared. But if everyone is comparing you, and like I can imagine money becomes involved, like your success, you're involved in it, and it affects you, and usually in a negative way, right? Like there's positive aspects of comparison, of course, right? Because it can be motivational sometimes, but a lot of times it's not positive. A lot of times it's negative because you're usually comparing yourself, depending on who you are, you're comparing yourself to someone that is doing just as well, or you're comparing yourself in like the factors that someone is better than you in.
Yeah. Usually you're comparing yourself because you feel like you're less than whatever you're comparing yourself to.
Right.
So with that in mind, I don't think anything positive can really come from that.
I mean, it could be positive in the sense of like, okay, I'm comparing myself to, let's say me and someone are in school together. We're both like in the same class.
Yeah.
I'm like, I want to do better than you. It's not like it's a comparison because I'm still comparing myself to you, but it's like competition, and it could be positive if.
Like you
it could
said,
be positive
there could
if
be
I
a
use it the right way.
motivating aspect to it.
Exactly.
But I feel like, okay, for me, maybe like I prefer maybe comparing myself to previous versions of myself. I think that's like a healthy form of comparison that is a motivator still. Like, this is where I was, this is where I want to be.
Of course, yeah.
But when you start like choosing a benchmark that's a like living, breathing person that is not you, it can be very unhealthy. And I don't really see many positive, like I can see yourself like maybe comparing yourself like, oh, I know this person has hit this benchmark when it comes to like, I don't know, track and field. Like they hit this benchmark, right? And I'm working towards that. And maybe last year I was like half a second below that, but I want to get to this point. I like that. I like you picking and choosing maybe parts of somebody that you want to attain. But when you're like, oh, that person's the best athlete ever. Like, what do they do to get to that point? How can I be like them? Like, what do they drink? What do they eat? When do they sleep? Like, that's when I'm like, okay, now we're getting unhealthy here.
Of course, yeah. I mean, I think like most things in life, comparison in itself is not a negative thing. It's really in how you wield it and use it, and how you apply it and all those types of things. And it's definitely like one of those things that most people don't know how to handle it because, like you said, you kind of end up edging towards the more negative things and more towards the things that like you're not up to par in. Because few people, I mean, people do though, because people that are egotistical and stuff. You might see someone be like, "Ha, I'm better than you," but most of the time, like it probably ends there, Like, and anyone that has people that they feel like they're better than around them, like they have issues. And like I'm not a psychologist, but that sounds like you have something going on there. If you want to be around people that like you feel like you're better than, like that's what makes
like
you.
if you're the big fish in a small pond, I don't think as much can come from that. Like
exactly
as you know, if you had to like
so even that in itself
yourself.
is negative. Yeah.
Or you've heard the term like if you're the smartest in the room, you should probably think about changing your circle because like the way you grow, the way you evolve and become a better person is when you're challenging yourself and looking to do better for yourself. Yeah, no,
definitely. And I think as Africans, one of the things that always kind of happens to us, especially if we have siblings, especially if they're close in age to us, or if we have cousins and stuff like that, is we get compared a lot, right? You get compared. Hopefully you're the kid that's on the positive end of the comparison, but it sucks for a lot of people because you got compared and you might be on the negative end, right? Like that person.
Why can't you be like Faye?
Yeah. Why can't you be like Faye? Faye has 4.0.
Words I've never heard.
Does Faye have 2 heads? And I'd be like, yo, like I'm just trying to get my own B in peace. Like why? Like oh, I heard that Faye got into Harvard. And you want, I'm like, yo, like, but I don't even want to do that. And I think that's a thing that a lot of, not just Africans, to be honest, but I feel like African parents do it a little bit more maybe than some other families where it's like they're constantly comparing.
Something I saw recently on social media, it was like African parents succumb to peer pressure more than anybody else.
Oh, facts.
Like, and I think that peer pressure comes from like comparing your daughter to, Shola's daughter. Like, and how is Shola's daughter doing versus my daughter? Like, imagine. Because guess what? That comparison is not only stealing your joy, it's also stealing your daughter's because there's going to be a trickle-down effect. You know what I mean? It's like, maybe I don't love that Shola's daughter is doing this versus my daughter. But then you put those pressures on your daughter and then she's feeling all this anxiety and pressure and, like, feelings of unworthiness or, just
definitely. Like you said, it has a trickle-down effect. Like, it has a trickle-down effect because the person being compared usually don't like that comparison. Like either party, to be honest. Like if that's your family, if that's your friend, like who wants to be like, I don't want to go to my friend's house and have his mom be like, oh, you should be more like him. He's a nice, like, of course, like in a moment it might be like, haha, yes, positive for me. But overall, like if it's actually a lot, like if it
could be a detriment to your relationship with whomever you're being compared to.
Because I don't want to have to uphold this image that's probably not true. Like what makes me better? Like I don't even feel like I'm better. So now I have to live up to this. Now my friend doesn't like me coming to his house because he's going to hear about all the ways that I'm better. You know what I mean? It's like, it's so unnecessary, but it happens.
I think you're tapping on something very important in the sense that that person that's seen as like this image of perfection is rarely ever perfect.
Never.
Who is? So whenever you're comparing yourself, again, you're comparing yourself to an idea of something and not the actual facts of the matter.
Very true.
So, and that honestly brings me to like social media and how we all know that social media profiles are highlight reels, like they're the best of whatever is going on in somebody's life. So if you're choosing to compare yourself to that person, whomever they might be, you're probably only getting like a tenth of the story and you don't know what else is going on with them internally.
Yeah, no, very true. Very true. I mean, you see people living lavish lives, right? And you're like, oh, why isn't that me? Or, even people, anything. Like, it just, to me, I think a lot of times comparisons too kind of come from what you feel a little bit insecure about, right? So if you're not feeling insecure about something, you probably won't compare yourself as much on that thing.
Oh my God, such a perfect point. I love that point, Dolapo, because like if I feel super intelligent, I'm probably not caring about somebody that got into Harvard versus, me that's going to a state school. Like, if I don't feel insecure about my intelligence level, I won't compare myself on that. Or even body image. Like, if I'm secure on how I look, I don't care what she looks like.
Exactly. Like, you don't look at it as a competition, threat, whatever. Like, you're just like, okay, that's nice. It's only when you feel a little bit insecure, like, oh, damn, wow. Look at him. Now look at me. Like, that's the only time you care about that. Most of the time, that's true. If you're feeling good about that thing, it doesn't even matter. Like, on social media, especially, like, you don't care about it. You can look at it and be like, good for you. Like, oh, I don't like this. No, like,
While we're talking about social media, how much do you buy into the fact that, or the idea, I wouldn't say fact, that there's a correlation between like the upward trend of social media use and the amount of mental health issues that there are amongst the youth or people who use it in general?
I buy into it from a non-educated perspective, meaning like I don't know if that's actually
why I'm
a
saying,
factual
like, I don't
want
to say facts,
right? Because for all we know, like a psychologist out there is like, this is just something people are saying. It's not true, right? And there's also always a thing of like awareness, right? Like people are just more aware of mental health in general. So like there's people like our parents' generation, depression was not something that you actually had.
Yeah.
Whereas now it's like depression is very well accepted. Yeah. Like, okay, like you can be depressed. Like back then it's like, stop thinking.
I will say though, did you hear what Skip Bayless said recently? It reminds you, wow, okay, there's a bit of a controversy. No, about Dak.
Dak Prescott.
Yeah, Dak Prescott, exactly. Mm-hmm. And Dak basically just came out recently saying, yo, I'm going through it. Like, I'm feeling depressed, whatever. And to the point where I guess it might affect his game, like he couldn't work out and things like that. And recently his brother unfortunately passed from suicide, Dak's brother. Wow. So with that in mind, he's like, I'm going to just be open with you guys because I'm realizing the prominence of mental health. And Skip kind of dismissed it, talking about you can't be talking about this stuff in public as the quarterback. You need to watch the clip. It's very unsavory. I felt I was cringing the whole time I was watching it. So with that in mind, it has become way more accepted, but there's a lot of people out there who still see it as some sort of flaw or don't really accept it as anything that needs to be spoken about in public, even though I think speaking about it in public is what makes it more of a digestible thing for a lot of people.
It is.
An accepted, issue.
It is. I mean, I think that, to not go too much into the Skip Bayless thing.
That was just an aside.
Skip is kind of an idiot, and he does whatever he has to do on TV.
Too. Yeah.
Like, he's old school. Like, I used to watch him on First Take all the time, but once he left, I was like, I'm not really... And just maturing, I'm like, this is... stupid. Like a lot of things he says, it's like he does, he's a character on TV.
It's a lot of shock value.
Like, exactly.
No, but when he was saying it, he said it with a lot of I know, I'm gonna be demonized for this, but this is how I feel.
And to be honest, I also understand. I understand what he's saying from a sports perspective, but that's why I said the whole maturity thing. It's there's a life perspective
outside of sports.
Skip Bayless does not leave his little sports perspective. So he's talking about as like you said, as the quarterback. Well, how about as a person?
Yeah,
how about as
that
a
was
man?
Literally one of Shannon's points. You know Shannon on Undisputed? Yeah. That was his big point. Bro, this is not only a quarterback we're talking about. This is a human being.
Exactly. First. So it's like you said, he's old school and he has a very tiny perspective, how he views the world on the topics that he has to speak about. Yeah. Which, of course, he's on a sports show, so it makes sense that that's his first perspective.
But that was a total aside. That still kind of is relevant in the sense that mental health is such a big deal and people are very forthcoming with it on social media nowadays. But I also think social media there's a correlation there. Maybe not a causation, but there's a correlation.
I think there is because you get to see so much more of other people. And like you said, you don't just get to see so much more of them. You get to see so much more of what they decide to show you and their highlight reel. So it's imagine being in high school. Yeah. When I went to high school, even if I was in school and I was having comparison, right? And I'm seeing this person, I'm like, oh, wow, all the girls like this guy. Why don't all the girls like me? I might have that comparison. When I go home, I don't think about that person anymore because, when I was in high school, Facebook came out maybe sophomore year or something. So it wasn't a big thing. Yeah. And I wasn't even on it for the most part. So it's that person is out of my life, out of my mind. I'm not thinking about them. I'm worried about doing my homework, eating food, watching TV, those things that make me happy during the day.
For sure.
Now, as a high school student, you get home, you go on social media. This person that you saw getting all the girls, now you get to see on their social media, it's reinforced. So it's damn, I can't stop
and
worrying
even beyond
about
that, comparison now has to go beyond your high school. It doesn't have to, but does go beyond your high school in the sense that you have so much more access to so many other people's lives, literally across the world.
Yeah.
So it's now I'm not only comparing myself to the quarterback in my high school, I'm comparing myself to the Division I athlete at whatever school. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's I can't win when literally there's always somebody out there doing something that you're not doing that you want to be doing.
Of course. And that's the thing, the way human beings are set up is we always compare. We always compare, and we kind of said earlier, you always find whatever flaw you see in yourself, you'll find someone that has so much that's doing better at it. Even the people that we look at, celebrities, athletes, they have their things that they're comparing on. Yeah. We might not know it because they might not tell us, but eventually, like, so many athletes and celebrities and stuff that later on we find out that, like, yeah, I was really concerned with something. I was really comparing myself with something. Even the Kanye West and Drake thing, like, as much as we're not going to talk about Kanye West, we're not. But, like, a lot of the things that kind of came out of what Drake said or what other people kind of felt was going on was, like, Kanye was comparing himself to Drake and did not like how he felt about, like, you know, it was like, damn, who's this guy? Like, and it happens all the time. It happens to everyone. And, you know, you just have to work hard not to fall into it, but you can't control it sometimes. Like, you're going to compare because that's how the human brain is wired.
Right.
I think. How does that, like, affect friendships, though? Like, have you ever had a situation where you're comparing yourself to someone so much that you can't be friends, or vice versa? Like, do you ever think that has ever played a role in your friendship with anyone of, like, this person is jealous of what I have or what I have going on? And...
Oh, wow. No, I haven't ever been in that situation where I felt like comparison has been a rift in a friendship of mine. Either way, like somebody being jealous of me or vice versa.
Yeah.
I think it's natural for comparison to happen, especially amongst the people closest to you, whether it's your siblings or your friends, and the like. So I don't think anybody can sit here and pretend like, oh, you're not comparing yourself in one way or another. Like, and again, it's always about what you're most insecure about. So whether it's your, like, maybe it's your body and how you feel about that, or maybe it's your job status or anything like that. But I think what always saves me is, like, well, one, I'm like the only friend that does what I do, in the sense that, like, I'm the only accountant, I'm the only, like, person that looks like me, acts like me, does me. So, like, it's hard for me to compare myself like in such a linear way.
I know what you mean. But
also, like, I literally super buy into, like, comparing yourself to yourself, like previous versions of yourself, versions of yourself that you want to get to, things like that. Like if I see myself feeling like I'm going elsewhere than that, like, I always snap back into it. Like, I'm always like, girl, like, that's not even your course. Like, there's nothing there for you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I definitely understand that. I'm the same way. I haven't really, so far as I know, like, felt like, oh, I can't be friends with someone because of comparison, or vice versa. Of course, vice versa, I probably wouldn't really know.
Oh, yeah.
But I definitely compare myself with other people, like you said. Like, it's something that is natural. It happens. I am with you, and I try as much as possible not to, right? I try my best to, just, again, like you said, that's just one thing, or it's just not even the whole story. Like, as much as you might think, even your friends that you think you really know, your best friend, and that one thing you compare, and it's like, there's so much more. Like, you because that's your best friend, you can even think about their whole life and be like, oh, damn, like, but I like this better.
I like that you even said that, because what's also saved me is knowing, like, some of my friends and family members so intimately that I know what people think about them, and then I know the truth, right? So because I have those examples that are so, like, close and dear to me, like, I literally never look at somebody and I'm like, they got their shit, because I know what's on the other end. I know what could be on the other end, I should say.
I know what you mean. And I think that I'm kind of like that, in that I'm also like I'm a positive person, but I'm a skeptic of like what stuff looks like on the surface. Just like, I know that it's never like that. So, like, when people, like, if you show me, people like to do this thing of like, oh, look at this girl that has this incredible body. I'm like, it's not real. Don't, like, they'll be like, how do you know? I'm like, it's just like, come on. Like, I'm just going to assume that there's something there that it's just, nothing is ever just all good. Right? Like, if anything appears to be all good, it's not real. Like, and that's just life. That's how people are. That's how life is. And, it's like a mental thing, or something you have to think about. And I think eventually it becomes more natural, and you just, or if you're just a skeptic or a hater, right? Like, I'm a hater of people. I see people on social media, I hate on them, but, like, not really hate. You know what I mean? I'm like, okay, like, what really happened here? Oh, you're on vacation with Bae? Really? Where's Bae? Like, are we sure to be, like, you know what I mean? Like, you have to hate. And I do it a little bit to protect myself. Like, it's not to put them down. Like, I wouldn't ever tell them or anything like that. And I don't really believe it, but it's like, I have to protect myself too. So, okay. Oh, you're popping bottles. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Oh, your relationship is goals. Your credit card. Let's see about that. Your bottles are in your car. Like, you got a nice condo, but you got nothing in your savings. Like,
I'm like, you bought a new car, BMW. Okay. Nice. And insert the hate. So it happens. But I do like the concept of comparing yourself to yourself, because I do think that true joy, at least in anything that you're doing or with yourself, kind of comes from being satisfied and content and happy within yourself. Like, it's within. You know what I mean? Like, it has nothing to do with what anyone else is doing. You're happy because you're happy. You're not happy because you're doing something better than someone else, or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you said, even like if you look at, like, let's say physical, like, oh, I like my arms. My arms are big. Mm-hmm. It's not because my arms are bigger than. Yeah. Like, it's just like, oh, like, I just like my arms because I like my arms. Like, when I look at it, I like it. I'm not thinking about anyone else.
Yeah.
Like, so I think that's really true joy about anything. It's within and has nothing to do with comparing.
Like, for example, to keep on that topic of body image, like, if you end up comparing yourself to yourself, it could be a bad thing in the sense that, oh, I was so much skinnier like 2 years ago, blah, blah, blah. But let's say you're on a journey to, like, lose weight or be more fit and blah, blah, blah. Like, if your comparison is what you didn't like about yourself maybe a year ago versus your comparison being, I don't know, Naomi Campbell, your likelihood of being like happy with your results is a lot more high.
Yeah.
A lot higher.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think, be careful about comparing yourself because sometimes it's like some things are unattainable or like that's then and this is now.
Yeah. I mean, I think that within the comparison of yourself, it's we're using the word comparison because that's what we're talking about, but really it's just being happy what you are and what you have and whatever, and compare yourself with reason, right? And also having like reasonable, realistic standards of what, like, or goals, objectives, right? Like, you can't be trying to be taller, like, you can't, you know what I mean? Like, that's not something to compare, like, oh damn, I'm still the same height as last year. Like, yeah, you're going to be the same height, you're even going to get shorter very soon. Like, why, you know what I mean? So it's like being realistic and just trying to find joy within yourself, because ultimately the things that make you the happiest usually have nothing to do. Always have nothing to do with comparing to what someone else has in that regard. Like, your family makes you happy. It's not because your family is bigger or smaller or smarter or anything than someone else's family. It's like, it's my family. I like my mom. I don't know if my mom is anything than anyone else, but I like her the way she is. Like, that's life, I think.
Aww. That's so cute.
I mean, I do love my mom. You don't love your mom?
I do.
Exactly.
But I'm just saying, it's cute when you're, when you're expressing it.
Of course, you have to, express things that make you happy and joyful.
Right.
Anything else you want to say on comparison?
No, I think we're good.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the bottom line, guys, the takeaway story, the moral of the story, is to be happy with you. Right? Yeah. Right? Be happy with you and don't compare it to other people. Trust me. There's mad things that they don't have going on. And we don't even need to know what it is. Just trust me when I tell you this. Whoever you think is popping, they're only popping.
If you're comparing yourself to Dolapo, stop it.
Don't compare yourself to me. Like, there's mad things I can tell you.
Comparing yourself to Faye, stop it.
Yeah, we can tell you mad things, but we're not going to tell you. Yeah. Like, you just have to know that there are things that you would be like, ha ha ha.
Yeah.
I win that part. Like,
right.
Do we have shout outs?
I think we do. I can start with a shout out.
Okay.
That, I mean, I feel like at this point is unnecessary because either you listen to the podcast or you already know about the podcast and you're just weird and you don't listen to it. The shout out being the Daily Podcast. Okay. Honestly, that podcast is amazing. I listen to it every single day.
I haven't been listening as much.
I don't listen to the Sunday reads. They have like a bonus one that comes out on Sundays. I only listen to the Mondays and Fridays, Mondays through Fridays, I should say. And the main reason I wanted to shout them out is because most recent 2 episodes, or actually no, the last Wednesday and Thursday episodes were about Breonna Taylor. And I didn't know how much I needed that podcast because there's just so much out there about the Breonna Taylor situation, like too much almost, that you don't really know exactly what's going on. You just have bits and pieces all over the place. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. But for me, I feel like I know a little bit here, a little bit there. But I never knew from beginning to end what exactly happened and like the nuances of it all. And I feel like that podcast did a great job at providing me with all the context and like basically a very good timeline and a good background as to like Breonna and the people in her life to the point where I'm like even that much more... Like, if you could be more appalled by the situation, I am. Like, it just feels even, I hate to say it too, it feels more hopeless in a way where by the end of it, you're like, oh, I don't really see how we're going to get what we want out of it.
So, I have listened to half of it. So, I listened to the first one, but not the second one. Okay. So, I need to listen to the second one. I just actually forgot about it. Yeah. But, like, it was so good. It was like, if you have never listened to The Daily... They don't pay us. They should pay us. But we're unaffiliated. We're really just telling you because it's really good content.
Amazing.
You should listen to both parts.
Yeah.
Because it's really good. And you don't like it's like all the episodes are kind of like that.
Yeah.
But this one is very specific because it's like a very like it's a story. And they, like you said, they delve into a lot of details about her life, the people in her life, and how she ended up being at that place at that moment.
Yeah.
So I think it's just very interesting. It's a lot of discussion points from part 1.
Yeah,
I don't know what part 2 gets into.
Alone, there's a lot of
for part 1, I'm just like, like you said, I didn't know a lot of this information. I'm not really the person that goes like when these types of stories come out and seeks out all the information. Because like you said, it usually leaves you feeling kind of hopeless. And like I know enough, right? Like I'm also kind of part of that people that think that with like I know enough. This lady was killed. She was unarmed in her house. That's like you can tell me all these other things, but a lot of times like when information is added, it's like to add context, right? To go back to our earliest argument, and it's like context is good if you're using it the right way, or you know what I mean, or if it's unbiased context. A lot of times the context we get is biased. It's like, oh, but did you know that? And it's like, wait, but did this still not happen the way that it happened? Like, what do you add in? But this is not one of those things, of course. Like it's.
I think it was much needed in the sense that like you see Rihanna's name all the time throughout social media, and I feel like a lot of us might not know as much as there is to know about it. And again, it sucks to say, but when you want something so bad, you think, okay, well, of course it's gonna happen if like millions of people are asking for something or posting about something, but then you're like, oh wait, that's not how the judicial system works.
And I'm always very shy about like the names because it's just so much, right? Like I'm just more of like I want to. This might be a bad thing to say, but I like to keep it more general of like, okay, like let's stick to the general message because sometimes when you go to the name, that's when they can go more into like context. And it's like, oh, like, can we, okay, like, I understand maybe that's true or maybe this, maybe, but it's like there's a bigger thing at play.
Like it's not just the police officers in that case that we need to be worried about. It's the system at large. And
I know the one thing I do know, even though I haven't seen part 2, is they don't know who wrote the warrant or something weird. Like, is that true? They don't know who wrote the warrant, the arrest warrant that they used to go in there.
I actually don't know anything about that. I don't know that they talked about that, but they did mention how like there's so much like from that night in terms of the police reports and stuff that hasn't been released that would normally be released. And just a lot of details about the case in general that are being. We
might talk more about that. Maybe a live or something.
Yeah, but honestly, we hadn't talked about Breonna Taylor on our pod yet, so I figured why not use this opportunity to do so. Yeah. Especially now that I feel a lot more abreast at the situation.
No, information is good, even though sometimes I run away from it. It's good to have information.
It definitely is.
You know, that's why we have brains and we can apply it correctly. We also want to just kind of send a prayer out and thoughts to everyone in California dealing with the wildfires. And I think it's not just California, probably neighboring states as well.
West Coast in general.
So, you know, prayers and thoughts. I was just out there. I didn't see it or really notice it. I did do a tour.
This particular fire, I want to say, started in Oregon.
Okay.
I don't know if it started there, but I know
it's on that
Oregon
edge,
is having some stuff going down too. Like a lot of the West Coast states in general, though. Yeah.
So prayers and thoughts to everyone that's involved, affected, has family members affected. You know, it's always scary, right? Yeah. We know this happens every year, basically, but it's still scary and it's it's tough to deal with.
Speaking of the daily, the Friday episode I think was about fires and
really?
More information that you're like, whoa, like the way this world is set up, bruh, like it's like we're not supposed to win, but more about that maybe later.
We're gonna have like a whole live about the daily, it seems like. I think that's all I have. There was a peace deal signed in Sudan. Yeah, I know we talked about Sudan like maybe last season,
they're also going through some stuff though.
Yeah, so there's been civil wars, all kinds of things. I need to read more about this before I can really talk more about it. But they signed a deal. The transitional government that was in place, remember they overthrew the government. So transitional government and the rebels signed a deal. So it sounds like we're gonna have peace in the immediate future in Sudan. So. You know, that's something to celebrate potentially. And
when I was saying they're going through stuff, which is our last thing I want to mention, is that they are going through some flooding right now. I know the Nile River is being whatever the
overflowing.
Overflowing. Thank you. To the point where Sudan is flooding and whatnot. So I know they're going through it in that sense, and prayers up to them still, regardless of them having this peace treaty. I know they're still struggling.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, and that's for everywhere in the world. Everyone is going through something, and
right.
Yeah, that's it. That's all we have.
All right.
Thanks for listening, watching, all that good stuff. Subscribe, share with your friends. Let them know you listen to this awesome podcast.
Yep.
All right. Peace.
Bye.